Welcome back to Horn Takes. Joining me today, once again, Michelle from the Cheap Seats. We're going to do 10 Sunday thoughts after the big 55-0 win last night over Sam Houston State University. Michelle, how we doing this Sunday?
Doing much better this Sunday than I was last Sunday, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Last Sunday was kind of like, what the hell just happened? What did we see? What is going on? Why can't this team why can't they get it right, I guess, is kind of what I was thinking, especially offensively. We headed into this week. I saw you tweet out like some things that you absolutely wanted to see out of the team headed into this game. We'll start there, Michelle. Talk about your keys headed into Sam Houston State and give us a scorecard on how they did this weekend.
So there were really only three things I wanted to see. I wanted to see Arch Manning look confident and able to complete the gimme throws. I mean, he just had seemed so down and not himself. I mean, you could just feel him through the screen, just not being happy. And that was radiating on the sidelines. So that was my number one key to victory. I just wanted to see him look happy and like joyful to be playing, because that's how he used to play, I feel like, last season. So I wanted to see that spirit back. My number two most important key was the offensive line. Just seeing more cohesion there, seeing more domination, because these teams they've been playing, they talk every broadcast, our offensive line outweighs them 50 pounds per player. And I'm like, man, that is not what we're seeing. So I wanted to see improvements there. And then lastly, I wanted to see improvement in the running game. We really hadn't seen too much explosions. It seemed like last week James Simon had done better, but then there just wasn't too much to talk about because nobody was getting explosive runs, things like that. So those were my three main things. But I was honestly going to be happy with the game if I only saw number one, just because you kind of go as your quarterback goes as a team, no matter what team you are. So that was like my most important thing. And I'd say overall, they did pretty well in all three areas. It was so refreshing to see Arch look so happy. And one of the biggest things I noticed is Cooper Manning gave an interview last season saying that his advice to Arch was not to listen to music before pregame so that he could soak everything in. And I think that's all fine and well when you're the backup and it's like, oh, yeah, I'm just, second string quarterback, going to enjoy the environment. But I think when you're the starter, it's kind of nice to have that buffer so you can just focus on yourself. You can jam out to, whatever music it is that pumps you up. And so I was really happy to see he was wearing headphones during warmups. It's the first time he's ever done that. And I think he should do it every game because it worked.
Yeah, I heard him say something about that on the broadcast or saw a tweet or something. And I was kind of confused because about what they were talking about. But yeah, everybody's got their own process. Some people are very they need quiet and they need to be kind of isolated to get into it. Other people may need, people around them and a lot of noise and a lot. It's just everybody's different. I don't think there's any one way to prepare yourself for a football game or any type of thing where you're going to be in the spotlight, so to speak. I think everybody just kind of has to find their own process and what they're good. And if it's listening to music for Arch Manning, let's get that guy some beats and let's get him let's get him some music before the games, because clearly he looked different to me yesterday as well. So yeah, your keys, I don't think these are like these things that we talk about. I don't think they're great ideas or even unique ideas. They're just things that everybody's probably thinking. And I think you're right for your keys. I think they did really well. I also had, I wanted to see the offensive line just absolutely physically own a bad team. And I think they did pretty well there. No sacks. They were able to move them around a little bit and get some space for the running backs. Arch had, a touchdown run or two. So I think that Arch Manning wasn't under a lot of pressure. And I think they were able to open up some space for the running backs. Probably not as well as I hoped, but I thought it was pretty good. And certainly better than it has been the last couple of weeks. One of mine was no procedure penalties. I absolutely hate those offensively. I mean, they're drive killers. And really, it almost becomes like a disease for these guys. We saw Cam Williams last year just have so many procedure penalties. And it's And it's funny. My junior year in high school, I went through a spell like that where I just was jumping off sides. Like I don't know what it was. I don't even know how I fixed it, but it just eventually stopped one day. I don't necessarily think I did anything different. But it is one of those things where once it happens and it happens again, it's like it gets in the back of your mind, and it's tough to think about other things. And if you've played any kind of sports or done anything that requires muscle memory, if you're thinking, you're not really reacting and doing the things you need to do. So all the thinking happens leading up to the game, and then leading up to the play in football for sure, like pre-snap stuff. You're thinking once the ball snapped, you need to be gone. So they did have a few procedure penalties. I don't remember exactly how many, but I remember noting it in my mind that there was some procedure on offense. So I said no. And when I say no, I mean none. And they didn't do that one. But that's all right. I wanted to see Arch play with confidence. And I think we really saw that probably for the first time this entire – I thought at times in that who was it? The second game of the season where he did pretty well. I can't even remember who we played.
I think, was that San Jose State?
Yeah, San Jose State. I thought times during that game he looked pretty confident.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the whole game. And I felt like this game he looked really confident. So for my keys headed in, there were 2 of 3. That'll get it done. And so, I think there's still a lot more improvement that this offense needs to make. But opponent aside, I thought they looked just like a different team to me yesterday.
They looked how a more dominant team is supposed to look against an inferior opponent. And we had not seen that all season, which was so important.
And I think that's kind of the key. When you play those types of games, it's almost like it doesn't matter what happens, you're not going to really get credit for those types of games. But if you don't play well, people start running their mouths about it. And I think maybe fairly so. I kind of was like, what are we doing? Like, these teams are teams we should be bullying. We should not be having these types of issues with these types of teams. But when you win them big, it just means you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so to see them come out after a really rough outing last weekend, and I think it would have been really easy for them to dwell on that and kind of let that carry over into this weekend, but that's not what we saw. We saw them really come out of the gate quickly and look again, just look how they should look. I don't know if we can say the offense is turned around at this point. It's one game, right? But it was good to see them look that way in a game, especially coming off last weekend. So there was the keys headed in. Let's talk about our 10 thoughts, and I think we'll just kind of go back and forth. I've written down plenty. I'm sure you have plenty as well. I'm sure some of them will overlap. By the way, if you're watching this right now, jump in the chat, drop your questions, comments. We love to interact with you guys. Forward it on to your friends, do whatever, retweet it, whatever you got to do to get some more people in here, and let's talk some Texas football. Michelle, start us out. What was one of your biggest thoughts from the game on Saturday?
So I thought Ryan Niblett is sort of emerging, not only on special teams, but I loved seeing him get a few plays with the offense. I think he's the explosive guy we've been missing. We talked 2 weeks ago about how there wasn't really anybody who was like a burner that was breaking through. He might be our guy. He might be our little boutique niche player, sort of like we used Jadon Blue last year. And I love to see him get more go. I noticed he was one of the game captains. And so that to me means like he must be really performing well in practice. And then to see Sark give him some go with the offense was really important. We're going to need a unique player like him that teams don't even know how to game plan for him, because there's no telling what he could do, right? He might go in as running back. He might go in as slot receiver. Maybe he just does something crazy on special teams. So that to me was a really exciting thing to see that I think will translate really well going forward into games.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. Seeing Niblett get some run was really cool, and he is very explosive. We saw it on the punt return that he got loose. He has a lot of speed.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about him is just kind of the versatility. He can play in the backfield. He's done that. He did that a little bit last year when we had a lot of injuries. So he's a guy that spots. And I think he's had an interesting, while we're talking about Ryan Niblett, he's had a kind of a tumultuous journey so far at Texas, at least in his eyes. I think a lot of people saw him out of high school as being a guy with all that speed, and you started hearing it pretty early in the season last year. Like, where's Ryan Niblett? How come he's not seeing the field any? Texas fans are probably the craziest fans on the planet about why isn't this guy playing? Why isn't that guy playing? But he just couldn't seem to find his way on the field.
Right.
And I think a lot of people were starting to get concerned that maybe he would transfer out or something like that. But he's really stuck with it. And to your point, maybe this is his time. Maybe this is his year to kind of get settled in with the offense and start making some plays. Certainly the ability is there. So, I think he's a guy that could show up big going forward.
For sure.
I thought getting DeAndre Moore back was absolutely huge.
Yes.
That's one of my main thoughts, or one of my thoughts from the game yesterday. He to me, he's always been a guy that just makes plays. And we didn't really see it, obviously, against Ohio State, because nobody made plays offensively against Ohio State, really.
Until the very end.
Yeah, and then we didn't really see it against San Jose State, because Parker Livingston was catching everything and running it in for touchdowns. And then, obviously he gets hurt last week. He's out. He comes back, and man, he looked like the old DeAndre Moore, the one we saw a lot last season, which was, very explosive, very reliable. And I think, Sark mentioned it, I think, in his post-game presser, just having him there during practice this week, he felt like set the tone for that receiver group. And so I thought that was huge. So I think, when you have your guys like that are your leaders, keeping them healthy and keeping them engaged with the team, and even if they can't practice, finding a way to keep them engaged with their position groups and the rest of the team, I think is really big, because people notice, like, the older I get, the more I realize that people are very much into this, like, oh, there's something off with my social group. Like, it now. I feel like the older I get, if one of my friends is a little off, I notice it. Whereas when I was a kid, I probably just wouldn't even notice it. So I think people pick up on, like, those types of cues, and it can affect the way they come in and stay focused and perform during practice. And Sark is obviously huge on the whole practice thing. We got to practice better, and we got to bring that into the game. He said that multiple times over the last couple of weeks. So I thought that was a pretty big one for the Texas Longhorns.
Me too. And I don't know if you remember, but the first two passes that Arch did, one was batted down. It looked bad. And then I can't remember the other one. But it was like, oh no, here we go again. And then he threw it to DeAndre Moore, and it was a really low pass, but DeAndre Moore, he caught it. And I feel like that made Arch be like, okay, I don't have to be Superman. These guys are going to make plays for me. And that was something Sark had talked about in his media availability too, of just saying the receivers, they're going to have to make some tough catches sometimes. We need to see them do that. Not every ball is going to be perfect. And I feel like after DeAndre Moore made that catch and we got that third down conversion, it was like light bulb. Okay, we can do this. And I didn't see any passes from Arch after that point that were like, ooh, red flag. They all seemed pretty clean. And I think that was so important. And DeAndre Moore, his mentor, I think was Jordan Whittington, who we all know he was such a great presence in the locker room and such a force on the field. So I think DeAndre Moore getting to be back in that role, I'm sure he kind of took the guys under his wing this week and was like, let's just do it. Let's have fun. And that really radiated on the sidelines and in the game. So yeah, it was huge having him back, and he had a great game. I think he was like 5 for 5. He did awesome.
Yeah, he did. Really, really good game for him. And I agree with you 100%. Like, those first few plays were like, all right, this looks a lot like what we just saw last week. He just didn't look comfortable to me.
Right.
And I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but I think just the weight of the world was on him so much. And regardless of how good you are and how prepared you are, I'm sure that's tough. And, nobody wants to play better than Arch Manning wants to play, right? Yeah. Like he nobody's probably tougher on him than he is. So to just kind of have all that and deal with all that and struggle with that, I think it has to affect you. I think we saw it. But I agree with you. As soon as that catch gets made, and it was a tough catch,
Right.
like kind of,
It was
Arch
really
kind of
low,
settled
and
into it.
he
Yeah.
dove and got it, and it was like after that, there were great passes going forward, so it was huge.
Yeah, you got to pick each other up, and we saw that. So good deal on that. What's your next thought, Michelle?
So next thought would be I really enjoyed that there were multiple instances of plays that we missed against UTEP that we made this week. So like the deep pass to Wingo, the 53-yard touchdown, it was the same play they ran last week that Arch overthrew him. This week they connected, and it was like, that's awesome. So glad they ran that again. And then there was also the inverse. So last week Arch had the stretch of 0 for 10 completions. This week, he went 13 for 13 at one point, like 13 completions in a row. So it was really encouraging just to see them continue to work on those things and be like, nope, we're going to try it again, and to actually execute it. I don't really care that it was against an inferior team. Mentally, I think that was huge. So love to see the deep connection to Wingo. And again, love to see the 13 for 13, the accuracy improvement. I just think mentally that was so huge.
Yeah, if you go and look at the stats for this game, and I just kind of briefly looked over them a little bit this morning before we jumped on, like a complete opposite of what they were last week, like everywhere. If you put them next to each other, you probably wouldn't believe they were the same team, and said, they're playing a similar type of team. Okay, that's not the same team because everything was just so much better this week. So flipping those things, and that was a beautiful ball, and that was a beautiful catch. That was not an easy catch. I know a lot of people, if he would have dropped it, a lot of people would have said, oh my, and I would have been one of them at the time. I'd have been like, God, we got to catch those. And I think that's fair, but I don't think people realize how hard it is to make an adjustment to a ball like that. He's running a post, and then he ended up having to take it vertical and even go back a little bit the other direction to catch that thing over his shoulder. So, but I did like to see Arch getting the ball out there and giving his guys a chance.
Yes.
I think for Arch, it has been so much, I've got to be perfect. I got to throw this thing in a perfect spot, but you don't. You just have to get it where it's competitive and then trust your wide receivers that they'll make plays for you. So to see him get it out there was really nice. I didn't even think about it at all during the game. We haven't heard any Arch's hurt stuff this week. Like we haven't, like there was no instances of is Arch hurt on Twitter at all this weekend. So that's pretty exciting, I think.
I know. I think he finally closed that narrative. So this week, Joel Klatt, he did a whole session about how just nerves to kind of counteract the is Arch hurt narrative. He said how nerves can really speed up your own processing. And so he was saying that Arch was like a tick ahead of the offense when he's making his reads. So he'll move off somebody so quickly instead of let the play develop. And so he's like, that's also going to mess up the mechanics. And so it really made a lot of sense. I definitely encourage people to go watch it. It was just like a 5-minute video. But to me, that was the most telling of, okay, yeah, he's definitely not hurt. This all makes a lot of sense. This is coming from a past quarterback. So it was a really good analysis. And, I wish I could articulate it better, but it was good to hear that. And I think definitely after he played yesterday, I think that narrative's put to bed officially. What's just so hard, though, is because of Sark's history of kind of skirting around being fully transparent with injuries. I think that's why it kind of stuck around so long, but I think it's officially dead. Thank goodness.
Yeah. And it was the play too. It just didn't look right. Just something looked off.
It was so weird. Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, Klatt is very good usually. Like I think I've only seen Joel Klatt say one thing in my life that I didn't like, at least maybe not 100% agree with, but I could go, that makes sense to me. But that was spot on. That's the other thing I don't think people really understand about jumping from high school to college. The game is so much faster and you feel like you don't have time even when you have time. And I think to his point, that's exactly right. Like Arch didn't feel like he had time. So he was burning through his progressions rather than just seeing what was there and making, delivering a ball. So it'll be interesting to see as we move forward. And obviously, Florida is down hard right now, but they are still a very talented team. For a long time in that game last night, they were just a play away from being in the lead of that game. It got away from them late. but they're a team that's got a lot of talent on that roster. So the skill of the opponent is about to pick up for Texas.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see if he can stay slowed down like he clearly to me looked yesterday,
right?
And made a lot of good, nice balls, delivered a lot of nice balls. The big one for me, the running backs are on the board. I don't think I've ever seen a Texas football team take 4 games to get a running back into the end zone, but that's how many games it took for the Texas Longhorns, the 2025 version, to get a running back into the end zone. I think that's going to be important. The more you can run the football, the more it opens up other things. It keeps the defense off balance. And we all know Sark is going to try to do it, but you're going to have to show him something. I feel like he just is not. He's not going to be the type that is willing to run it 3 times and punt, play defense, and then do it again and do it again and do it for multiple drives until something opens up and pops. That's just not him. So for the offensive line to be able to make some space, get the running game going, for the backs to be able to find holes, break tackles, I thought it looked a lot different to me. And again, we've talked about the opponent, and that definitely plays a part in all of this. But just to be able to see them kind of consistently be able to move the football and with different backs. I think the other thing we got to think about and remember when we talk about the running game, there's 4 brand new offensive linemen, which that takes time. And the top 2 running backs haven't really played that much this season. So we're talking about guys that are having to step up and into sort of different roles and do different things. So to see them be successful and finally get on the board, I thought that was awesome. I remember back in the day and I loved it, like the Ricky Williams era and around that time where we just ran it down people's throats and it couldn't stop us. So to see a Texas, we're running back you. I mean, a lot of people think that. I think there's a great argument that Texas is running back you. They have not looked like running back you this season so far. So maybe that's something that can get this team sparked as well. And if you can do that, it makes life easier on Arch Manning.
I think it'll be interesting because it seems like instead of just having one dominant back, or maybe that's Trey Wisner when he returns, but it just feels more like it's going to be running back by committee and less of these are our 2 to 3 backs, because I thought that Gibson looked maybe the most explosive, but Christian Clark is really good in the screen game. And then Simon, he's looked really solid. You're going to want to continue to give him reps. And I think that having so many different people that you can kind of put back there is going to be great for the long season because, we're hoping to be in the mix by the end of the year. And I remember just last year, it felt like we kind of ran out of gas in the running back room a little bit. Blue got more involved in the passing game, but just there were so many games where Wisner was not able to be the lone guy who could get the workhorse, more than just 25 yards, So I think that's going to be really important for just the long-term outlook for this team. And I'm excited to see, who is going to emerge when Trey Wisner returns? Like, is that going to push everybody even further? I know CJ Baxter, it will be good to have him back, but I wouldn't want to rush him back, already having another injury after his knee. I think they need to be really cautious with him. So I'm kind of hoping let him sit a little longer, keep healing. But I'm excited to see what Trey Wisner with this running back committee we've got for our 3, 4, and 5 guys to see what that will look like as we get into SEC play.
Absolutely. We're talking Texas football, 10 thoughts on a Sunday with Michelle here on the Horn Takes podcast. Jump in the chat. Drop us your questions, comments. We'll talk about that stuff. I appreciate the interaction. I'm sure Michelle appreciates the interaction. So jump in and tell us what you think on a Sunday morning. We've been through 4 thoughts so far. Michelle, what's your third thought for this Saturday game?
Third thought, I'm going to kind of touch on the penalties. So I thought majority of them are coming on offense. And majority of those offensive ones are coming from the offensive line. So a good sign to me is it's concentrated mostly to one area. And I think as they continue to get more playing experience, it's going to get cleaned up. The first 2 penalties were on the first drive, and Connor Robertson was starting at center for Cole Hudson because Cole Hudson got injured last week. So that was kind of, okay, this makes sense. This guy's his first start, brand new center, communication could be off. So those I'm kind of like, that's a wash. There were 2, I think, on Brandon Baker. I think he was holding. So that was like, okay, a little bit of a red flag there because it's kind of happened almost every game. But I think, again, this is his first year starting. He's just got to get the reps and learn how to correct that. And then some of the others were just procedural things. But again, I'm relieved to see it concentrated in one area because the first few weeks, it was all over. It was on special teams, defense, offense, offensive line. It was all over the place. So I think having it be sort of corrected in other areas, and now, okay, we can really hone in. We know what these guys are doing that's causing this and can work on solutions. I think is a good sign going forward, even though it's still frustrating seeing all the penalties happen in the first place.
Yeah, I think, though, as far as the penalties go, I think we've seen it kind of start shrinking a little bit. I haven't looked to see how many they had yesterday, but I don't feel like as I watched that game that there were just a ton. It certainly wasn't like it was last week where it was almost like every play or every other play there was a penalty. So yeah, I mean, I think and I hope what we're seeing is the team start to get dialed in, get comfortable. As you mentioned it multiple times already today, get some confidence. I think that will go a long way for some of those things as well on the penalty side. I was really happy to see no turnovers. That's been, I don't know that it's been a huge problem for Texas this year, but it has been a problem. It hasn't been great. It hasn't been what you would like. You never like to see the ball go on the ground, or you never like to see the ball go into the wrong team's hands. So I thought that was a big thought I had was like, hey, we made it through a game. We didn't turn the ball over. And that's going to be, you only get so many offensive possessions anyway. And to give them away by turning the ball over is clearly not what you want to do. And so, I don't know if there'll be too many SEC games where we'll be able to score. I think it was 9 straight drives or something they scored on yesterday. Like it was really solid performance offensively. So you don't want to give those possessions away. And really turnovers can be just really damaging plays. So I was glad to see him protect the football, both running the ball and throwing the ball. So that was one of my thoughts.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it was Arch's first game this season not throwing an interception. And I also noticed there was a 3rd down play in the red zone where he had a lot of pressure. And last week, that was when he tried to throw it away. And it was just a brutal interception. Whereas this week, he just took the sack, and then we were able to kick the field goal. I was like, yay, sorry, kicking the field goal. Yeah. So I thought that was really good. Of course, you don't want to see him get sacked. But at the same time, it was a better decision to just, I'm going to go down, and then we're going to get these 3 points and go up 24-0. So that to me was a little bit of growth. And I was also happy to just see a field goal kicked, which was great.
Absolutely. We've talked about it. I am not a fan of leaving those 3 points on the field, trying to go for it on 4. I mean, I think we've seen Sark do it just a whole lot the last 2 seasons. And it's in some spots I get it. In other spots, it's like maddening. I don't think you can analytic that one. And I think that's what Sark has been doing. The analytics say, let's do it. Because I think there's got to be a human, sort of intervention, some thoughts and feelings into the decision, not just the raw numbers say do X in this situation. Right. So yeah, you mentioned the growth. Maybe that's something. Maybe that's something we've seen some growth in Sark. Maybe he's kind of stepped back and looked at that in himself and said, what am I doing? Like maybe those weren't the best decisions. It's tough. Right. You're in a game. You don't have a lot of time. There's these situations will come up, and you kind of just have to. I think that's why they rely on analytics so much, because everything is so sped up in these games, and it's so much information that they're trying to process and deal with. As they go, it's not the old days. The old days, right. They just had some plays, and it was usually like maybe 10 plays total, and they kind of just called them, they had reasons to call them, but now you've got all this information flowing down to the sidelines. You got your little laptops and pads that are showing you videos of everything. It's just a lot. And so I think they rely on the analytics probably too much today than they used to. But what's your next thought, Michelle?
Next thought is the defense forced the 20th consecutive turnover in a home game, which is the longest streak for an FBS team. So I was super happy, even though it was like the Hail Mary at the end of the first half. Turnover is a turnover. So I was really excited they got to keep that streak alive. And gosh, they just, in general, they did awesome. I think Jelani McDonald was the one who got the interception. He's playing out of his mind. He's playing great. I love it.
Yeah, the defense, again, really they at some point late in the game, they mentioned something about Texas's lowest, allowed yards was like 111 yards or something like that at home. And I don't even remember like the time frame. It might have been ever. I honestly don't remember. But it was funny because they were talking about it and they go, and of course they had the ball at that point. Sam Houston had the ball. So they're talking about, they might be able to get past that. And they did on the very next play. Like quarterback scrambled, I think, and got it. But still, I want to say it was like 113 yards they allowed, which in 4 quarters, I don't care who you're playing. That is a crazy dominant effort and to do that, it has to start up front. And so, we've been talking about the interior of that defensive line. Can it start to get some more pressure and can it start to be more disruptive in the run game? And we certainly saw that. But the interesting thing to me about the defense, and I don't know how many of these 75 players that played last night, I think Sark, that's the number he threw out. 75 guys played last night, which is crazy. I don't know how many of those guys were on the defensive side of the field, but there were a lot of people that took snaps on the defensive, especially in that second half. So a lot of new faces were out there on the field for a lot of that second half, and they were still able to make plays and keep that Sam Houston State offense just really uncomfortable.
Right. And so many of the young contributors are doing so well, like Grayson Littleton. He continues to amaze me. He's one of the best players on defense already, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Just being a freshman. So I think it's, again, I keep on talking about this with the long season. The depth is just going to be so important. And I'm really glad they were able to get so many people in. On defense, they were pretty much able to do that almost every game. But on offense, I'm glad they were able to do that this game too. Caldwell was able to get some reps in. Some of the other young wide receivers were. I thought Dalen McCutcheon had a great game. I think he only had 1 reception, but it just was good to see him in the mix. Seems like he's really created a gap between him and maybe his peers in his class. So he could be a contributor in most games. So it's exciting. I was really happy to see so many people get a chance to play.
Yeah, that's why you want to blow people out in those types of games. So you can get a lot of people off the bench. And I think, all those guys work hard and arguably those guys that don't play a lot are the guys that spend the most time getting beat up in practice because they're on they're running the scout plays and things like that. So for those guys to be able to get into the game and actually, be able to perform in front of all those people and kind of experience that, I think it's huge. And again, I think that's why you have games like that on your schedule. That's one of the reasons. Obviously, you can't play all the best teams all the time, but there is that factor to me where you got to look at those games as a head coach and go, if we do what we are supposed to do early in these games, we'll be able to play a lot of players. And I think that's important to keep people motivated, because if you go 10 straight weeks of getting your brains kicked in and you never get it, there's no damn well I'm ever getting on the field. It's just not going to happen. That starts to eat at you, I'm sure. And so, it was great to see that. Back to the defense, man, I was kind of concerned coming in this season about the interior because we didn't know. I thought they brought in some good pieces, but we just didn't know what it would look like. And the secondary was one, again, because we didn't know. Lots of talent there, but we just we weren't sure how it was going to go. And I go back to your comment. I think the first time you hopped on with us a few weeks ago, you talked about Manny Muhammad. Just they still haven't called his name. Like,
They
I
don't want to
completely
touch him.
forget.
He's like,
Yeah,
stay away.
I forget that the guy is even on the team, and I think that's a great thing. I think that means he's covering very well. Like, they're not even attempting to throw the ball at him. So that's big. And you can lock down a side of the field like that. You can do a lot of different things with your other defensive backs, and I think that's what we're seeing out of this defense. My next thought is defensive related. Colin Simmons, man, I feel like he's got to get his hand on the ground. They talked a whole lot about that before the season started, about how the new defensive end coach has been working with him on getting his hand on the ground, and we have not seen it. And I think what I feel like I'm seeing out of Colin Simmons on these pass rushes, his get off is just, it's not right. Something's off. Like, it's almost like he's taking a drop step before he moves. I'd like to see him get his hand, and he did one time. I had that thought at some point during the game, and then I saw him put his hand down. And I was like, okay, but it was really tentative looking. Like, he put it down, he lifted it up, he put it back. So I don't know what the deal is with that, and I don't really know that I understand why that's a difficult change. Like, just put your hand down, get in a track stance and move. Because to me, he just doesn't seem as quick off the ball as he did last season.
Yeah, it's almost like changing that stance has gotten into his head.
Maybe.
And so he's just really thinking about it. I don't know either. To me, it's a great sign, though, that Colin Simmons and even Anthony Hill, he's had some good plays, but those two have not been the all-stars yet that we know them to be. Right. And I mean, our defense is still balling. So I'm like, they're going to figure it out. Colin Simmons is too talented to not figure out how to change his stance. Ant Hill, I feel like they really are just saving some unique packages for him for SEC play. And so I'm excited to see it come. But yeah, I hope we see that light bulb go off for Colin Simmons again soon. It's been interesting, but I think it's just he's overthinking it, or he's just not quite comfortable with it yet. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's been I wouldn't say it's been like disappointing, but it's been odd to me. I think it's been like, whoa, because we saw him last year be pretty dominant. Like, I mean, getting pressure. Like, he didn't always get home, clearly, but he got home a lot. But when he wasn't getting home, he was affecting the quarterback a lot. And I feel like we just haven't seen that happen so much this season. And again, you go back to the opponents. You would think against some of these opponents he'd be able to get a lot more pressure, but he did get a sack, so I think he's got 2 on the season. Still plenty of time, obviously. But I thought I just keep going back to that mention in the offseason about how we got to get his hand down. We think he can be better with his hand on the ground. Well, let's get his hand on the ground. Let's see what it looks like. It shouldn't be that hard. Put a hand down and go. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they're saving that for SEC play. Who knows?
Guess we'll find out soon.
I guess we will. We got 2 weeks to find out. The Texas Longhorns have a bye week this weekend. By the way, the Texas baseball team playing Texas Tech down at the Dell Diamond in Austin in a fall ball baseball game.
Really?
So if you don't have anything to do on Saturday and you want to go watch some Texas sports, go over to the Dell Diamond, watch Texas and Texas Tech battle. A whole new Texas baseball team pretty much this year. They lost a lot off the roster from last year. So there's a few familiar faces for sure, but there's a lot of new guys coming in. So it should be interesting to see how they do. And I think next weekend, I'm going to try to get Mark Pena from Occupy Left Field and our friend Zach Sim from Zach at the Dish on the show Sunday to talk Texas baseball and see how that looked for them. I'm not going to be able to go, which is regrettable because I love the baseball and I would really love to see this team, but an early glimpse of this team. But anyway, keep that in mind if you're in the Austin area. If the Horns aren't playing football, so go watch them play baseball.
Hey, speaking of baseball, there was a Jonah Williams sighting in the game.
That's right. Yeah, I noticed it. I don't know how long he was out there though.
I don't either, but thank God he was out there.
Yeah,
I think he'll be a contributor on the team for sure going forward. Once they just feel comfortable putting him out there. I think it'll mostly be on special teams, though. I think that's
Probably.
where he can carve out a role for himself.
Sure. Yeah, because he's probably not going to start this year at
Right.
any point. I mean, unless you just have like a rash of injuries or something like
Mhm.
that. The injury certainly probably held him back. And if he's struggling with that in the middle of the season or at the beginning of the season, I'm sure he was struggling with it in fall camp.
Mhm.
So the likelihood that he got a ton of reps in even fall camp is probably not super high. But
Right.
we'll just hope that that's something that he can finally get past, because he dealt with those types of hamstring injuries all throughout baseball season this last
I
season. So
know.
they can kind of be naggy for those kind of quick twitch kind of guys, which he certainly is. So yeah, we've talked offense, we've talked defense, we're talking 10 thoughts. Michelle, one more thought out of you. What did you take away from the game on Saturday?
I just took away the fact that this team really feeds off Arch Manning, like big time. There was kind of the controversial when he stared down the Sam Houston State player. For me personally, I didn't mind it because you could just tell it was such a release for him. Like he had so much frustrations that he was just so happy to be playing well. And I'm like, you know what? We paid Sam Houston State a lot of money to pay us or to play us. Let us do what we want,
Yeah.
But it just that really hyped the team up. I mean, so to me, it's like Arch Manning's emotions, they're gonna go as he goes. And it was just fascinating to watch it in real time. Like the whole team just fed off of him. Not to compare him to Quinn because they're totally different personalities, totally different players, but it was different than what I'm used to seeing. I guess every team more or less feeds off their quarterback, but it was just in such a transparent way that I'm like, okay, he really needs to be this on and this confident and have this swagger because our team is really looking to him and they're going to model their behavior after how he is, you know, behaving on the sidelines and on the field. So that to me was just something to file away. And I think that maybe going forward, even if there are games where he's maybe not performing well or not having the type of success he was having yesterday, that he still needs to be that confident swagger guy on the sidelines and just keep the energy up, because otherwise you'll see the team go down. And that to me, it was just really interesting to see, because we felt all season long like the sidelines, where's the happiness, where's the joy?
Yeah.
And it's easy to have that when you're playing well. So what I really want to see is that even when he's not playing well, that he's still engaged on the sidelines, pumping people up so that he can keep the energy of the team high. Like it was just so transparent to me how much they feed off of him in a way that like I haven't seen in a long time on a Texas team. So
Yeah, it's an interesting point you brought up about Quinn. That was kind of one of the interesting things about Quinn Ewers, because he was
mhm,
very reserved, very
mhm,
quiet. Like
yeah.
you really didn't see any. I remember, I think the first year he was at Texas, I made a comment at one point here on the show about how he's almost like, and I didn't mean it like in a negative way, he's
Right.
almost like a psychopath. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what is going on around him. His demeanor is exactly the same. He could have
Mhm,
just thrown, 10 touchdown passes, or he could have thrown 10 interceptions, and
mhm,
his demeanor and what you see coming out of him is going to look the same, which
mhm.
I think can be a good quality in a
Right.
quarterback. But I did like to see Arch kind of get emotional, and you know, I did feel like it was a moment where, and I think most people probably feel like that as well,
Mhm,
where just a lot of sort of pressure just kind of got released for
right.
him. And so I'm torn on it. I definitely don't want him acting that way every Saturday.
No.
Because I think you can go too far, and I think he
Right.
did go too far. And sort of not the celebration. Like I think it's fine to be
Yeah.
excited and all that stuff, but I thought like how he kind of hovered over the other player and kind of stared. He's lucky he didn't get a
Right.
penalty, honestly.
Right. Oh,
Uh,
I think the ref had to talk with him. No, I think for me though, like I said, I don't want him to do that level, but I think just his overall demeanor though of
sure.
being, hyping his guys up, he was talking to people, he was just so engaged with everyone, and they really matched that energy level. The play where he stared out the guy, it is what it is. That poor kid, he was there at the wrong time. Like Arch Manning just needed to let out his thank God I'm here moment. And I think he learned from it. I don't think that will happen again.
His mom got mad at him. So
I know, and Mama knows best. He's going to listen to his mom.
That's right.
But I think I loved Quinn Ewers so much, and that wasn't his personality, and he was always authentic to himself, which was great. But I think it's clear that this team, being so young and hungry, they need a leader who really does sort of wear their emotions on their sleeve. And so I just think it's important going forward that Arch is mindful of that and knows, hey, I cannot get down in the dumps on myself like I did earlier in the season when I throw a pick. I've got to just get on the sideline, be like, wipe it off. It's all good, guys. We're going to go. Do the mat clap, Come on, guys. I mean, just staying positive, I think is going to be so important because these guys, they really match his energy level. And it was really cool to see just in real time that happen.
Yeah, I thought, Sark mentioned it in the post-game presser that he feels like there's like a balance between being over emotional for Arch, but also he feels like sometimes he's not emotional enough. Like he doesn't let his personality come out enough. And I think we saw that last night.
Yeah.
And Sark said he thinks he almost plays better just kind of cutting it loose, almost kind of like the same the same thing we heard about, the whole Vince Young when early in his career at Texas, they tried to make him do things that, weren't necessarily to his strengths. And then when they kind of just let him play and be Vince, we saw what we got. We got a national championship. So I'm certainly not comparing Arch to Vince in terms of whether we win a national championship. But I think if you're that type of person, and there are people that are just like that, they are going to wear their emotions on their sleeve. I think Diego Pavia is another guy like that. I mean, I think he says a lot of ridiculous stuff that he probably shouldn't say, but I think that's the way he gets himself prepared to play.
And his team responds to it.
Right.
And so that's the thing. If your team is responding to it, then you need to lean into that. And I think the Texas team is responding when Arch is, joyful on the sidelines. So he needs to lean into that no matter what type of game he's playing.
Sure.
And, sorry to cut you off. There was like a training camp report. I can't remember if I've touched on it before on the show, but it was such a side note that I didn't even think anything of it. But Sark had said at a press conference, the team just gets really down on itself after one play. So we're teaching them not to do that. And I feel like over the first 3 games, I'm like, okay, that report was specific to one person, and that's Arch Manning. He gets too down on himself from play to play and lets it compound. And so I think to see him be able to snap out of it from the beginning of this game, where he had the 3 bad throws, but he was able to have a quick memory and forget it and then move on. I think that's a good learning technique for him of how to do that going forward, because the Florida defense is pretty good. So he's going to have some bad plays in that game. And so I think him being able to draw on this experience, regardless of who the opponent was, is going to be critical for him to be able to maintain that mentality and not carry over those negative plays. But I just thought it was so interesting because that was just one comment in training camp media availability and that nobody really thought about because he framed it as this is the team. But again, I just, over the course of the 3 games, I'm like, that was definitely just an Arch Manning thing.
Yeah, it probably was. That's probably 100% right. I thought it was awesome. My final thought is we scored on an opening drive, something we have not done. And I don't know when the last time we scored on an opening drive. Probably back to the playoffs last year against Arizona State. I believe we scored really quick out of the gate in that one. What's that?
I think that is. I think you're right.
Yeah. So, and that shouldn't be the case 4 games into this season. Again, if you look at the opponents we've played, that should not be the case. So it's good. And man, it's like one of those things where once it starts raining, it's pouring because they scored on, I think it was like 9 straight drives they scored on.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of those were touchdowns. So again, opponent aside, the offense did a 180 this week from last week. And I'm really interested to see, and I wrote this down as a question for us to kind of talk about. is what we saw yesterday the offense we're going to see going forward? And I'm not talking about necessarily production, but I felt like the offense, even if we wouldn't have scored 55 points yesterday, I felt like the offense just looked different. It looked confident. It looked in a rhythm. It looked all those things that it hasn't looked basically at all this year, outside of a few minutes against San Jose State. It's been pretty out of sync. It's been really penalty driven. It's just not looked good. Arch is just didn't look good. You could tell something was going on with him. We didn't see that yesterday at all. So I think the question going forward for Texas is, did that get them right? We've been talking about the get right games for 3 weekends now. We finally got it right. Is that, does that carry over into Florida with a bye week and all that? Or was that kind of a fluke? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think this team just so desperately needed a confidence boosting game that there are elements they can take with them. Number one, just being how Arch needs to carry himself going forward. Number two, being able to draw back on, oh yeah, I was able to complete that deep route, or I was able to complete that, screen pass behind the line of scrimmage. Being able to draw back on real in-game experience from this season, not just, when I was backup and I played against UL Monroe, I was able to do this, being able to draw on real in-game experience from this season, I think is going to really help them going forward. And I think also just knowing too that there are a lot of players who didn't even play like the past 3 games. On defense, there's a ton of people who've been sitting. We already have talked about the running backs who have been out. So I think they're just going to kind of keep sprinkling more and more people back in as people get healthy. So I think it's going to be nothing but a confidence booster, just knowing there's still ammunition out there. Like, I didn't see Sark just unleash the playbook. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was kind of the same that he had been doing, but it was just run so much better. So it felt a lot different and it felt better. It was an easy watch. It was not an easy watch last week. I couldn't even watch the game. It was it was terrible. And so I think just being able to draw on real in-game experience and not just practice for the team is going to be great going forward. And it's something that can translate into future games. But I think just the most important thing is going to be how they respond to adversity when they go to the Swamp, because that will be what is truly telling, because there really wasn't any adversity in this game, aside from the 2 passes. So that to me is the key, but there are so many positive things they can take from this game to sort of help their mindset in prepping for SEC play that, I think it still is very much beneficial. If we had played poorly, it would not be good.
I think
we did what we needed to do, and we just need to build off of it and take it for what it is.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think that's a great approach, and I think you're 100% right. I think you looked at Twitter over the last week, and I know Twitter's not representative of all Texas fans, but there are a lot of Texas fans on Twitter, and it was pretty much widely spoken that if something doesn't happen this weekend, like, we're pressing the panic button. Yeah. We're pressing the panic button on the offense, pressing the panic button on Arch Manning, and whatever. I did a poll on Twitter earlier in the week just to see where Texas fans stood, and it was like 78% of it was they thought QB play was the reason, and then there was another 13-15%, I believe. The majority of the votes came in on these 2 categories. The QB play was holding back the offense, or there was 8 new starters holding back the offense. And I think probably a little bit of both, honestly. Right. And I think, again, I knew before the season that this offensive line would take some time, and it's already been switched up a lot. Neto not in the rotation anymore at all. We started a new center yesterday because of an injury. So that group is dealing with a lot of adversity. And I think what we're finally starting to see is them kind of gel a little bit and come out of that. And so, I think as we head into Gainesville in a couple of weekends, can they continue down that path? And can Arch kind of stay slowed down? is the key, because I think you're right. He's been playing too fast and putting too much on his own shoulders. So again, I hate to say a big win against a Sam Houston State team, but I feel like for this offense, that was a big win. They have a lot to look back at and say, man, we did well here. We did things right. So taking it forward, let's see what they do. Michelle, thanks for joining. Everybody out there that's watching this morning, thank you for joining. Thanks for jumping in the chat. Those that did, and it was only one, Connor Hayes jumped in the chat. Shout out to Connor, and he said hi. So hi back to you, Connor. Yeah. So yeah, we'll be here every Sunday. Come join us at 10 o'clock. We'll talk 10 thoughts. This week, Wednesday, I'm probably doing a show just to kind of wrap up this Sam Houston game after I've had a chance to go back and look at it. I may reach out to you, Michelle. May have you back. So be prepared. Be ready.
Okay, I will.
And then next Sunday, it'll be baseball talk. Hopefully I can get Mark and Zach on the show, and we'll talk about how the baseball team looked in its first action with a really changed roster here in fall ball. So anyway, thanks for joining, everybody. You guys have a good rest of your weekend. Michelle, y'all go follow Michelle. She's a good follow over on Twitter. Information right there at the bottom of the screen. You guys can check us out at Horn Takes as well. Y'all have a good Sunday. Get hooked.
Hook 'em.